when you don't even know it. You know, some people think they're strong in the Lord and just being fooled by Satan. And so we need to be aware. Paul said we are not unmindful of his devices. Satan has all kinds of strategies that he uses against us. And if we're not aware of that, we may think we're strong when we're very weak. But to be on top of your game, you need to know what he's talking about and some of the things we want to mention this morning in this particular chapter that we see over and over again. Verse 10 says, finally, my brethren, he makes that a point of getting our attention. Finally, he wants us to know something here, my brethren. Be strong. Be strong. Not just strong, but strong in the Lord. And that little prepositional phrase, it says something gigantic there. Be strong in the Lord, not strong in your own strength. My might is so little, yours too. If you think you're smart, you're not. Paul said, if a man thinketh himself to be wise, let him become a fool, that he may be wise. In other words, if one thinks himself to be smart and strong of his own strength, well, then he's not. But Paul said, let him think about it. Let him become a fool. And he said one time himself, I am a fool for Christ's sake. But you are wise in Christ. I am weak, but you are strong. And all this kind of thing. So here he says, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Not the power of your might, not the power of my might, but be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Do we know how to do that? Do we know how to be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might? The Lord has put into his body, the church. He has given the Bible to the church that we might learn how to be strong and wherein to be strong so that we can fight this battle. If you just kind of lackadaisically going along, not thinking too much about it, you may be won over. You see, Satan has what you call, in war now, they have this poisonous gas that they can just let out and kill people without they even knowing it. You know, that's the way some nations fight now, and I suppose our nation has some of it too. They just let out these gases and they will kill thousands and thousands of people. When the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, or then some of the gases were used then, and people died who were not in the vicinity of the bomb. It just, those gases got to them and killed them out. And Satan has that kind of thing working for him. And therefore we need to be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. And we need to be working on that, trying to do that. But if we're strong in our own might, then we're going to lose. Satan said, not by power. David said, not by power, not by might, but by my spirit, says the Lord. This thing has to be done by the Lord. And then verse 11 tells us something about the equipment. You see, if I'm going to fight Satan, I need some equipment to fight with. When you're going to fight an enemy in a carnal war, you need some equipment. There are some things when you go as soldiers to train for war, well then there are some equipments that you are trained in, you are given, and you're going to use them whenever the battle breaks out. But if you don't have that equipment, you're not going to last very long. So you need that equipment, and Paul talks about some of the equipment of the Christian warfare. It is a warfare because he said the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God in the tearing down of strongholds. He said, put on the whole armor. Now, one is not going to win with half of the armor, with 3/4 of the armor. One must put on the whole armor of God. Put on everything that he tells you to put on and that he tells us to put on if we're going to fight. Notice he said that we may be able, put on the whole armor of God that we may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. He has many wiles. He has many things. He has many tricks. Satan is full of tricks. Every day he is trying to tempt you some way. And we must recognize how he does that. But if we are not mindful of his devices, if we're just kind of going through or just kind of half-hearted, like Satan is taking us over and we don't even recognize it. But he said, put on the whole armor of God, not your own, that you may be able to stand against. There's something we must stand against. Sometimes Christians don't want to stand against anything. There are things that we must be against, and we must stand against them. You know, we must be offensive as well as defensive in our fight with Satan, because he is not going to give up. As long as you live, and every day that you get out of your bed, Satan has some plans for you. And he means to overthrow you. He means to destroy you. They come at you, his things come at you from all angles, and if you're just careless, he'll get you. Then verse 12 says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. This is not a battle with flesh and blood. This is not a hand-to-hand combat like we know about here in this world sometimes. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. And sometimes when we are fighting each other, we're not fighting the real enemy. You know, we look at people as our enemies. And I know that they represent that cause. But the real enemy is Satan. Satan, if Satan gets at me and I react on you, then that's the way Satan works it. And if some of us allow Satan to get in us, then he's going to do his evil tactics. And he's going to work those things on other Christians as well as other people. So in this case, he is saying we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against, notice, against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Look at all of those things. This is what we have to wrestle against, not flesh and blood. We don't get out there in a fist-to-fist contest like the pugilists do, but this thing we're dealing with is much superior to that. Principalities. You may never see the real enemy per se, but he is working. Principalities and powers against the rulers of the darkness of this world. That's what you have to fight against when you go to work. You have to think about the battle is on. I'm in a war. When you go shopping, you're in a war. Wherever you go, you're in a war. And the real enemy is Satan. He says, against the wiles of the devil. He calls him by name. And the devil is that real archenemy behind the line, feeding those whom he can control. And they will work at all of us to cause us to trip up and fall along the way. You know, after you've been in this thing a long time, you can see Satan a mile away. If you're wise enough to know his devices. And sometimes Satan doesn't know that you know his devices. Even the people that he works through, you know, they think you don't know, but you know, and sometimes you just be quiet and just keep things to yourself and go to God and pray about it. But don't ever think people are foolish. You know, if we choose to be that way, we can be. But notice he says against the principalities, against the powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Satan fights in high places. Now, Satan is the prince and the power of the air. In other words, Satan is even in touch with heaven, if I may tell you that. In the book of Job, if you read it, he can talk to God, and God can talk back to him. Satan got some contacts that you and I don't have. And therefore, we need to know him. We need to know how he works and why he's able to work. He doesn't have as much power as Christ, but he has power second to him because he has power over us. If we succumb to his tactics and his ways, and some of us don't realize that when we're acting certain ways, it's Satan that's doing it. You know, sometimes if you have a friend, and if certain other friends come up, you can't be friendly anymore. Satan is ruling you. Because if you're a good friend to everybody, you'll be that friend no matter who comes up. You see, no matter who comes up, you're going to still be that friend. But if I have to fraternize with certain people, and then if other folk come up, remember Peter did that one time? He was down there with the Gentiles, just eating his pig and everything else, I guess, down there. But when the Jewish brethren got there, he withdrew from them. He played the hypocrite. And Satan is behind all that kind of a thing. So look at some of the ways that Satan works in that. The spiritual wickedness in high places. And we can't even tell how many forces he has at work and how many ways that he works to destroy us. And therefore, but he is a real enemy. In the Revelation, John called him accuser, an accuser of the brethren. Satan accuses the brethren. He even tried to get Christ in the wilderness. After he had been tempted 40 days and 40 nights, he says, now I can get him. He's weak. He's hungry. He doesn't have the strength that he once had. So he comes and he offers him his bread. If you be the Son of God, make bread out of these stones. But Jesus didn't fall for the trick. He didn't fall for Satan wild. He says, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Because he thought he was weak, and that's when he comes. He catches you on your worst day. He comes at you at your vulnerable spot, where he feels that you are less guarded, and Satan intends to get you and destroy you. And then next he comes at him with doing something spectacular. Carried him to the pinnacle of the temple and said to him, jump down, and God will tell his angels to catch you, to bear you up, lest at any time you dash your feet against a stone. But Jesus said again, it's written, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. The Lord quoted the scriptures on him. And that's what we need to do today. We need the scriptures to quote. We need to know the Bible so that we can defend against the wiles of the devil and all of his strategies, because I tell you, he's loaded with them. And he knows which one to apply to which person. He knows how to come to you today. He knows how to come to me today or tomorrow. He knows how to come to everybody.